Let's bring in Alan, live on the line. You told me you're playing sick. How are we sounding?
I don't know. You tell me. Not great, but profile and courage. I'm here.
I
So
think you sound totally normal. You already have like a scratchy voice to begin with.
okay, cool. Late night DJ vibe, whatever. I'll take it.
Yeah, it's good stuff. All right, so let's bring up the first one. We'll get right into it. Does the USGA and the RNA need to re-examine the putting rule? I'm going to start with this one. I say yes. When they made the rule to ban on anchoring, arm lock wasn't really a thing. Yeah, there's the question from Christian Wright. Arm lock wasn't really a thing. I just think like the arm lock is not the spirit of the rule. It's still, yeah, the tip of it's not anchored, but it's still anchored up your arm.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would like to see a maximum putter length, just like we have a maximum driver length, and get rid of the broomsticks, get rid of the bellies, call it 36 inches, maybe 37, whatever the number is. But I want people to putt the way, Arnie Palmer did and Jack Nicklaus. Like there's so much trickery now, and people are using centrifugal force and anchoring but not anchoring, and yeah, arm locks, all this stuff. Like it just doesn't look right. It doesn't feel right. I don't think I'm like an old fuddy-duddy, but in this case, I would like putting just to be putting, and maybe that's unfair to guys who have gamed the system somehow and they've found a way to get the ball in the hole. But there's it's an entertainment product. Like there's an aesthetic appeal to this, and Adam Scott with a broomstick, not sexy. It's just like it just doesn't look right, and I think it'd be okay if the ruling body stepped in. They've done a lot with drivers. Why not get into putting? That's an important part of the game. They've just kind of let it all go, but a little more oversight would be welcome.
Yeah, I completely agree. We're on the same page there. Okay, next question. List your top 5 courses currently on the PGA Tour schedule that you would like to play. I'm going to ask you this one, Alan, because I feel like you've probably played them all.
Well, I'm always going to say Pebble Beach was my number one. I was a cart boy there for 3 summers, where I really fell in love with golf. I live 5 minutes away. It's a special place. Riviera, which I've only played twice, and it's been a long time. So I'm waiting for you to invite me back, Dan.
I'm not a member. You keep on talking like I'm a member, but I am not a member.
I know, but you're Mr. LA. It can't be that hard. It's a phone call for you.
I know someone.
I know you do. I mean, Plantation Course to me is as much fun as you can have on a golf course. There's so much geometry, so many angles. That's just an absolute blast. I've played it once, but I'd like to play it again. Well, I was going to say Cypress Point. That's on the Walker Cup Roto, and they just announced Pine Valley. But I mean, it's funny how the Walker Cup outshines the PGA Tour now. I've never played Colonial. That appeals to me. It doesn't suit my game. It's so tight, but it's a very aesthetically pleasing course. It drips history, and it's just kind of something kind of macho about Colonial. I think you step on that first tee, you're like, okay, I got to play good golf, and the members are going to judge me. It's kind of like being at Muirfield in Scotland. You feel there's a feeling in the air there that you don't want to let people down. So I'd say Colonial. I don't know. Help me out with number 5.
So I'll give you mine. So I process this maybe as like ones you hadn't played. So I'm in a weird spot because I've been to all of them, but I haven't played a lot of them. I've played a good amount, but so for me it's Muirfield Village. So I've been there a gazillion times, never played it. I've actually never played TPC Sawgrass, despite being there all the time. I feel like 17 is one of those holes you got to play. Diamante, because that means I'm playing golf in Mexico. I played the old Colonial, but I've not played the new Colonial. So I'd like to see the changes, and yeah, there's a lot of history there. And for me, Harbour Town. I've never been to Harbour Town. It's always after the Masters, and I'm always just like really trying to stay married and get home after eight days in Augusta. So those are my 5. All right, we're gonna move on to the next one.
Was I supposed to prepare for this? I didn't realize we had the questions in advance.
No, you're fine. I only sent you the questions, but it's totally fine. Will Luke Clanton be a Ryder Cup pick? I'm gonna say no, but I understand the question. He does have 6 top 20 finishes in 12 starts on the PGA Tour, which is crazy. I mean, his whole run started at the U.S. Open last year, so it's been 10 months. And obviously Ludwig, getting the pick for Europe, but I'm going to say no. I think he'll maybe be in consideration, but I'll say no. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we know the Ryder Cup is very cliquey. It's very much about who wants to play with whom. The past body of work in the Ryder Cup is probably given too much weight, but it's a factor. It's the relationships with the vice captains and the captain and all this stuff. I mean, there's no doubt that Clan has a ton of game. That's been made very plain, but I don't think he has relationships. I don't think he's paid his dues, and it's hard to imagine they would take him over a a Tony Finau or someone else who's in the mix, who's been in Ryder Cups and has been, a stalwart on tour for a long time. So I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah, I think with Europe, with Oberg, it was almost a little bit of like bottom of the bear, like they were searching, and the back half of the order wasn't nearly as strong. So I think it's a little bit of a different case. I'm gonna let you answer this next one, Alan. Do you think the only way to stop slow play is to have a shot penalty if it's over a certain time on the shot?
Yeah, that rule already exists. I mean, it's been on the books forever. Like we talked about this a few weeks ago. It's strictly a matter of enforcement. There are numerous statutes that exist on the PGA Tour related to slow play. There's just not the will to enforce them, and it's just that simple. So, yeah, a $10,000 fine is nothing to these guys. Losing an actual shot that might make you miss the cut or keep you out of contending or prevent you from getting FedEx Cup points or Ryder Cup points, like that is the only solution. If they handed out 24 one-shot penalties on a Thursday, the next day on Friday, the pace of play would increase by half an hour easily.
Yeah, so I was thinking about this because I did that ride along with the tour rules officials, and they were talking about shot clock would be so hard to administer because when do you start it or when you're searching? You know where it wouldn't be hard to administer it? On the putting green. Because there's no looking for balls, there's no, rulings, there's no group in front of you. When it's your turn, you have 40 seconds to putt or 45 seconds, whatever it is. Like Aaron Rai taking 2 minutes on the green. That's so easy to get rid of. So I think a shot clock on the putting green would go a long way. Okay, our next one, over or under 3.5 tournaments played for Tiger this year. I'll say over. I think he's going to play the Players. All signs point to him playing in the Players, and then I would say probably all 4 majors, or even if then he only needs to play 3. Feels like that's kind of an easy one.
Yeah, I think if it was 4.5, that might be a more challenging question. I agree with you. He seems like he's moving better when you see little glimpses of him at Sam's soccer games or whatever. Just a little lighter on his feet. We've seen him swing the club at TGL. Looks pretty solid. So, Portrush is a tough walk. It's not flat like the old course. There's a lot of elevation. You go way out and way back, and there's a lot of hills and dales. So that's a tough one. But Oakmont's got a lot of movement too, really. So I think they're not the easiest venues for Tiger, but he's not getting younger. He's had that most recent back surgery. I think he's gonna show up at 5 tournaments. Whether he completes them is TBD, but he'll be there.
Next one, this is for me. Any chance you could be working on a Bryson book? 0 chance. Do not have time to write a book right now. But also, I'm just not that sure that there's that much that's a mystery about Bryson. Like he puts out more media than anyone. I think that's probably why your Rory book is so compelling, is because he is so private.
Yeah, and I think that maybe that question references Full Swing and Bryson electing not to participate. I think he wants to control his media. That he's learned that he wants to own his narrative. He wants the spoils of putting everything out himself. To do Full Swing, he has to relinquish some control. So it's the same thing with the book, unless it's an autobiography where he has final say on every comma. But I agree. I think it could be interesting if it was sort of a Malcolm Gladwell approach where you kind of get into his head and you explore all these crazy theories and the non-traditional thinking, because that's really the Bryson DeChambeau story, is coming at everything from a different direction. And it's led to a lot of success. It's taken him off the rails a few times, but he's not a linear thinker. He's not bound by convention. That is what makes him compelling. He's, as a personality, I don't think he's had a big enough life to carry a book per se. But I think if you get him talking about astrophysics and everything else, it could be morbidly fascinating. I don't know how many people actually want to read it, but there is a book there if Bryson would really open up his brain and his life. But I don't think he wants to go down that road.
Yeah. Next one is for you. What was Jake Knapp thinking?
Man, the Jake Knapp love on Thursday, and it just petered out. I mean, my favorite part of the whole thing is when they showed him in the gym, doing 155 on the incline. Like, I can do 155 on the incline.
If you want. I'm Alan. Oh.
I'm just saying it's not that impressive. I'm like a sort of out of shape sports writer. Like, throw some more 45s up there, Jake. Like, if you want to wow the fans at home, that bit made me laugh. Like, that's so golf. Like, oh, this guy, he's so macho. He's such a badass. He's got 155 on the incline. Like, come on, man. So what was he thinking? It's just, under pressure, you make physical mistakes, but it's the mental mistakes that are killers, right? And the ability to think clearly and to process information and to make the right choice, that's a learned skill. And clearly, he's still learning it.
I think there was a question from the chat. Do we have a question from the chat?
Yeah, we got a couple good ones, but I want to read this one since we were just talking about the Ryder Cup.
Okay.
Who do you think will miss making the Ryder Cup team that will surprise us?
Wow, now we have to think on our feet. Really putting us on the spot here.
I know, and there's so much meaningful golf in front of us.
Yeah, but no, we both have to come up with an answer. That's not acceptable. I don't think
just came up with a Bryson Book idea on the fly.
I'm gonna say maybe not so much a surprise, but Fitz has been on the last 3, and I'm worried about it. So I don't know if that's the European team, but I'm worried about it.
Well, I'm gonna say Jordan Spieth. I mean, he's been a stalwart for the U.S. and
you're not encouraged by the last couple of weeks.
Marginally, but I think the lesson of the Ryder Cup the last few times around is the old boys club, the Jupiter crew. That's not a winning formula, and Keegan was chosen partly because he's an outsider, and that's part of his appeal. Is he's not in the clique, and I think that they brought him in to make some tough calls. And if Spieth is just not playing well, I think we're past the point of having emeritus selections to the U.S. Ryder Cup team. Like, you got to come in playing well. You got to earn it. I mean, this is going to be a holy war at Bethpage. It's going to be probably the most intense Ryder Cup since Kiowa. And you need guys who are playing with total confidence and their game is just rock solid. And it's not about what they did in 2015. It's not about some putt they made, a decade ago. Like, it's what have you done in the last 6 months that really matters. So, of course, if Spieth can find it, he's an asset. I mean, we all know he's gritty, and that match play when the guy's saving par from everywhere and he's making 8-footers to have holes, like, he has that, but he's got to refine it.
Wasn't there one about the contracts, LIV contracts?
Oh yeah, any updates on those?
Yeah, well, I just saw that Fred Couple said that Brooks Koepka wants to come back, and I saw Brooks was at TGL. You know anything, Alan?
Yeah, Fred's indulges in wish casting a fair amount on his Twitter. God bless him. He's been flying the flag for the PGA Tour this whole time, which I respect. He's taken a very strong stance. It's his legacy. It's his home. But it's just, as we talked about previously, this is a humongous year. The big contracts of the captains and the most important players are going to start lapsing. And so this is the existential question for this year. Does he double down? They've already put $5 billion into the model. Does he have the appetite to keep going? Because, I said if they lose Bryson and Brooks, it's over. Not literally. LIV is going to endure as long as His Excellency wants it to. But from a credibility standpoint, those are the two guys who are really carrying the tour, along with Neiman.
Rahm.
And, I guess, but Rahm's kind of disappeared into a black hole, and Rahm's locked in. He's, he just signed his contract, so Rahm's not in the conversation about who's going to leave yet. But Brooks and Bryson are, and so LIV has just hung its credibility on. We've got major championship winners, we've got studs, and if you lose those two guys, does Yasir want to put up another $200-300 million for each one? We're going to find out, because that's what it's going to take. They have the leverage now, because if they go back to the PGA Tour, it's a death blow to LIV. And so it's just like the contracts when LIV announced its first schedule way back in 22, all of a sudden now the credibility of the whole thing was on the line, including Yasir, including his boss, MBS. And that's when the numbers started skyrocketing, because agents knew that. Schedules announced, they need players.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of the same thing. It's like, all right, LIV is going to endure. They're signing these contracts into 2031, but they need players, and so the leverage is flipped way back to the established guys on LIV Golf, and they know that. And so it's going to take a lot of money and a lot of fortitude to keep them. And this is like gut check time for Yasir.
All right, let's go back to we have 2 more questions, I believe. One of them was, at what point does the PGA Tour admit that signature events are not working and go back? I actually disagree with this. People have always bitched about there's too many tour events. They basically shrunk the tour to 12 or 13 events. And there's an A tour and a B tour, and everything that happens in these weeks, like the Cognizant Classic or Mexico Open, is kind of a bonus. Whereas weeks like Bay Hill and weeks like the Players Championship, that's where the eyeballs are. The ratings have been good. I think the signature event is probably, I don't think they're going to go back to what they did before. I think they're going to lean more into that, where there's big events that are in big cities at great golf courses, and then the other ones, that's kind of by the wayside, right?
Yeah, I mean, the signature events have been a success for gathering the best players more often. That was their whole mandate. It's worked, and they've been good tournaments. I agree with that. The challenge is you have another, 30 plus on the
Yeah.
schedule. So as long as you're going to have a tour event, you need some players to show up. If they take those 30 tours and they cut it in half, now you're going to get more of the stars to turn out because they got to tune up. They've got contractual obligations. They just want to play golf. So the tour schedule, there's just too many of these B-list tournaments, as you're saying. But I think there's definitely a way forward. That it's about contraction, because when you consolidate all the stars to the signature events, now they're just taking all the other weeks off, and that's a problem. You used to at least get a smattering of guys you really cared about at every event. There might be a couple turkeys, but other guys would just show up because it's their hometown, because their wife likes a spa, because whatever it was. But now they're so consolidated around the signatures that every other tournament is really withering. So I think some long overdue, fat trimming is in order for the PGA Tour schedule.
Our last one. Actually, I have one more, but who would win in a golf match year round? This is the easiest question. I think I could probably, if I played with one club, I think it might be close.
Oh, come on. We had a match at Palmetto. I think it went to the last hole.
I do not remember it going to the last hole.
I definitely do.
Okay, well, I won it still. Otherwise, you wouldn't be saying that you
made
won.
a huge putt on 17. Now, I was getting some strokes, which is why they invented the handicap system. But yeah, Dan, he's young. He's in his prime. He's a superior golfer. But
I've got one more question for you. You tweeted something that Tim Rosefort put you in a headlock at the Masters. What happened?
I answered that in the comments, but we were talking about the early days of like the reader mailbag. So this is around the turn of the century, and somebody asked, which reporter on the Golf Beat plays the most golf? And I said, oh, Rosie by far. I thought I was celebrating. I was hailing him. That's like, wait, that was attaboy. Way to go, Rosie. But he thought I was blowing up his spot, and like I was disparaging him. So I was just sitting there typing away, probably some beautiful lead, the words are flowing. Like that's Scott Fitzgerald. And all of a sudden, like some big mofo comes up behind me. He's like trying to twist my head off like a fucking bottle cap. And I didn't even know what was going on. Some other guys jumped in and peeled him off of me.
So he was actually mad.
He was mad. And, Rosefort, he was a football player. He was like a fullback. And he's just kind of had that mentality. So, I mean, it was mostly amusing because I didn't lose consciousness. And, but it took a little while to settle down, but this was all in the context of, I guess, some NBA guys had a little NFL had a little
Ian Rappaport, who I'm not related to, by the way, and Jordan Schultz, and then he told on him or something.
Yeah, like a report got made to NFL security. Like I didn't run to the nearest green jacket and tattle on him. Like we settled it man to man, like you're supposed to, and he apologized, and we had a bro hug, and it was fine. But I always gave Rosie a little bit of a wide berth after that. Like he couldn't quite take a joke.
That's awesome. I love that. We'll do it again soon, Alan. You're the man. Thanks for playing Hurt.
Yeah, happy to be here. See you.